Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Origination Point Podcast. So excited to share with you and build on our last podcast, which was about our blind spots and how we become aware of our blind spots, how we can be more open to hearing from others about how they experience us. And remember, the quote that we ended on was, "You cannot build a bridge while defending a wall." And so thinking about how do we use strategies to be able to recognize, deconstruct, and shift our blind spots from being blind to being aware. And one of the tools I want to share with you is something I've been using for a good part of my life, which is journaling. So think about journaling as a tool for awareness and healing. When we're writing stuff, it slows our mind down enough for truth to surface. And in this social media, internet world that we all live in, the truth is that our mind is racing. And we're moving from click to click to click to click to click. And our attention span is about this big, 3 to 5 seconds. If something doesn't hook us in 5 seconds, then we move on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And that affects our whole rhythm of our brain. And so as you think about journaling, think about it as a tool to slow down your mind long enough for truth to surface. And it's also a place that's private, that you can really be honest without performing. There's nobody watching. It's just you and a piece of paper and a pen or pencil. And that's also very important. Journaling is not about typing on your computer, because what happens when we write, where we take a pen or a pencil and we put it to paper, is it opens up different synapses in our brain. So it's designed to have a deeper effect on our creativity, on our understanding, and on our ability to go deeper into our own thinking. And so think about it from that perspective also. So your journaling is in a written form, where you're journaling with a notebook, with a pen and paper, with a pen or pencil. Okay, so slows down our mind, gives us a private space to be honest without performing. It helps us separate what happened from what we felt or what we assumed. And so it can, again, enable us to go into truth without all the stories. Assumptions are stories. And so we're making up stories about everything that happened. And also patterns emerge on the paper that we don't necessarily see in our heads. And so as you start writing, and as you do this day in and day out, you will begin to see patterns. And those patterns are what's important to focus on, because they could be patterns that propel you, or they could be patterns that hold you back. And so what we want to do is just become aware of the patterns. Don't label them, don't judge them, don't defend them, don't contextualize them. Look at what are the patterns that are emerging, because these patterns are your life. These patterns are indicators of where your head is at, or what you're experiencing, not only today, but maybe for weeks or months or years. And so some prompts that you can write about. What am I reacting to right now? What story am I telling myself? Where have I felt this before? What am I afraid would happen if I let this go? You think about what's the most important question for you to answer in that day. And then write about it. What we write down stops running us from the shadows. Think about that. So what we write down stops running us from the shadows. And if you can't find the meaning with that, find somebody to talk to. Because the other part of personal growth is we don't do it in isolation. Maybe there's somebody that you want to journal with that you can talk about. Here's what I wrote about today, or here's the pattern I'm seeing emerging. And it could be that that person knows you really well and will say, oh my gosh, I have seen that pattern in you also. Here's how I've seen it. Or that's interesting. I don't know if I've seen that part of you. You don't want to use them to discount what you're finding in terms of your own patterns. You just want to be able to process it on a deeper level so that you get to understanding and you get to the origination point. So the other part of this approach that I'm sharing with you is there are no shortcuts. You can't just go from A to Z and skip everything in return. The other part of this approach that's really important is there are no shortcuts to growth. You can't just go from A to Z and skip all those steps in between A and Z. Every avoided lesson returns with more intensity. So if you're experiencing the same thing over and over again and you're getting tired of it, then it's probably time to just stop and let it be a part of your learning. Stop trying to avoid it. Stop trying to say, oh, that didn't really happen. Because if it's happening over and over again, it's probably because you don't want to deal with it. And there may be good reason. It may be very hurtful for you. It may be very deep for you. It may have happened so long ago that it just has a traumatizing effect on you when you think about having to go and process that. My dad's relationship with me was one of those as an adult that I didn't want to deal with. It was too hard. It was too hurtful. It was too painful. And so it kept recurring in my present relationships in ways that were really negative. And so I had to start to deal with it because growth doesn't punish us for avoiding it. It just waits. It's just going to wait and say, well, at a certain point, you'll figure it out that you can't avoid me. You can't avoid this step, and you'll be back to deal with it. And that's a really important part of journaling, is that journaling can help you to process what it is that you don't want to feel. And from that perspective, I'm going to encourage you when you're journaling to just do a stream of consciousness. And what that means is you're just writing without really thinking about it, without writing a sentence and then stopping and going, that's not really true. Or that didn't really happen. Or, well, I was justified for doing that. Just write and write and write. And maybe the first time you just set a clock for 3 minutes. Just write and see what comes up. The work we refuse to do internally shows up externally through conflict, stress, and broken connection. And so when I was not doing the work of processing through the emotions that were created and the feelings and the hurt from growing up with an abusive dad, all of that showed up in my present relationships by creating conflict, by creating stress for myself and the other person, and by creating these broken connections in terms of my relationships where nothing really lasted. Didn't matter who that person was. It didn't last because I would always find fault in it, and the fault that I would find in it went back to the experience that I didn't want to deal with, the one that I was avoiding. So what you will find as you journal is you will start to write and read about these patterns and these things that for you are really important to deal with. Choosing to face something hard now is an act of self-respect, and it's an act of growth to let you know that you are actually growing. So what I want you to take away from this is there are no shortcuts around the work. There's no shortcuts around doing your own personal growth. There are only longer roads back to it, because the road through it is just going straight here to here. You avoid it and you take this circular path or a squiggly path, whatever you take a path that is going to take twice as long to get back to, and it may be more hurtful or harmful in the long run. So how do we start to eradicate blind spots? Because that's really what we're talking about, are our blind spots. So there's a few ways I'm going to share with you. One is replace certainty with curiosity. We talked about that earlier. What are the questions that you can ask yourself about, why am I feeling this way? Why am I experiencing this person like this? Why did they just tell me that the interaction I had with them was really harmful? And be curious. And be curious from a place of just accepting versus justifying or being defensive or contextualizing. Listen to understand, not to win. When we listen to understand, we listen to hear the perspective of how someone experienced us. It's the difference between what's wrong with you type of a conversation, which puts the blame on the other person, to can you tell me how you experienced me, which is about you actually sharing, how did you experience me? Was I kind? Was I mean? Did I do something hurtful? What did I do well? And in that perspective, we start to really go for understanding, because when we go for winning, then there has to be a loser. And so if I'm going to win, you're going to lose. And losing has its own connotation and creates its own barriers to us being collaborative and in community together. The other way we eradicate blind spots is to slow down our reactions, to really be thoughtful. A reaction is kind of quick. It's not built around a lot of thought. It's just like, here comes a stimulus, bam, I'm going to react to it. And in a lot of cases, it's the incorrect reaction. And so we make the interaction worse, or we in some way harm the other person. And so what we want to do is to slow down and create responses. Now, a response is different than a reaction. A reaction is just knee-jerk, bam, I'm going to do this without a whole lot of thought. A response is, what's happening here? What is it that I need to do? How do I respond to this? It's more thoughtful, it's more thought out, and it's more of a approach that looks at how is this going to affect the relationship that I'm in. And then tell the truth. Tell the truth to yourself. For the most part, we all know how we're interacting with each other. I knew when I was being a jerk to other people. And before I had the skills to do it, I would never apologize, because I looked at it as apologizing as me being wrong or making them right, or in some way not wanting to take responsibility. And that didn't get me anywhere. So tell the truth to yourself first and recognize that, gosh, that was a pretty negative interaction. I can either go back and apologize, or I can know that the relationship is going to be forever altered because I caused harm to that other person. The most important part of how we eradicate is that it's not about perfection. It's about responsibility. It's about practice. Healing starts when we stop asking who is wrong and we start asking what's happening inside of me, or how did this other person experience me? So here's some other ways of looking at blind spots, and you choose the one that resonates with you. Awareness is the doorway. Choice comes after. Your blind spot is not your fault. Healing it is your responsibility. And that goes back to our blind spots were created when we were young. And some of them were given to us. We didn't create them ourselves. The healing, though, we have to own that. That's our responsibility. If it feels charged, there is something there for you. So it goes back to this idea of when you feel yourself get emotionally charged, don't label it. Just look at it as, why am I feeling all this energy right now in this interaction? Because as soon as you label it, then you're going to create a story about it, and the story is going to be wrong. If you just feel that emotional charge, then the question is, what is it about me that's feeling emotionally charged? And what do I need to heal? Or what do I need to come to terms with? Or what's the conversation I need to have? Judgment is often grief that never had language. So our judgment towards others can be looked at in a way that I had an interaction with this person or this group of people that caused trauma to myself, and I never knew how to talk about it. And so I went to this judgment that all those people are bad, or all those people are wrong, or all those people are stupid. And what this approach of journaling is attempting to do is to give your judgment language around what you experienced, whether it was grief, whether it was trauma, and to start to again understand the patterns that are there. Curiosity is the opposite of fear. Fear is just like, I'm not going there, I don't want to talk about this. Curiosity is, I'm going to ask every question that is possible to be able to understand why I'm charged and what it is that happened between me and this other person. Growth feels uncomfortable because comfort was never the goal, freedom was. The growth process is not easy, and it takes time, and it's not comfortable. And again, the approach that I'm sharing with you is not about you being comfortable, it's about being free. It's about getting rid of the shackles that these unhealed relationships and unhealed blind spots have when you're interacting with people from that group. If you're unconscious, you don't even know what's going on. And so freedom means that you're no longer interacting with a group of people based on your blind spots towards them or your judgments towards them. It means that they do no longer control how you interact with people from that group. That's what freedom is. It means that you're able to be responsive and get to know a person within that group and decide, do we click, do we resonate, or do we part ways? We heal in layers, not leaps. It would be nice if we could just jump from A to Z, and that's not possible. What that means, layers and not leaps, is we have to just keep uncovering layer after layer after layer. And I have to tell you, after 40 years of doing my own work, the most challenging layers were the ones that I was denying, which is where I was early on, probably the first 10 years of this approach, because they were the most hardened, the most unhealed, and the deepest rooted in trauma and grief and pain, those early layers. As I keep pulling up fresh layers now, they're less emotionally charged, and yet they're still real, and there's still growth, and there's still learning I can get from it. Connection begins where certainty ends. Think about that one. And that one I wish we had more time to talk about. Certainty. Certainty is the meaning or feeling that this is it and this is my understanding and there's nothing else that I can take in. So if I hear a different perspective, I discount it because I am certain that my approach is the right one. So when we live in uncertainty, then we live in possibility, then we live in the opportunity to be able to hear a different perspective, and then we can create a connection that's different than the one we currently have. Because that new perspective might be just what we need to connect with this person, whether they're in our family, our workplace, or someone that we just bump into. So I want you to think about those as you go through your own journaling. And remember, we don't heal division by shouting louder or proving our point. We heal it by doing the quiet work of understanding ourselves. Every blind spot we soften makes room for more humanity. And that's the work. And as hard as it is, that's how we come back to each other. That's how we heal this country that is so divided right now. I'm going to take you through a guided journaling exercise. It's called Seeing What I Couldn't See Before. So these are the steps that I would encourage you to take as you step into journaling. So before you begin writing, take a slow breath. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Take 2 or 3 or 4, whatever you need to really ground yourself. Put your feet on the floor, put your hands in your lap. You can have your eyes open, you can have a soft gaze. And do that breath. In through your nose, out through your mouth. However many times you need to ground yourself. Because as you're doing that, there's nothing you need to solve. It's not about being right. It's about being real. And you can run those sentences through your mind as you're doing your breathing. There's nothing I need to solve right now. This is not about being right. This is about being real. So now grab something to write with. If your mind just wants to rush, slow it down gently. We're choosing presence over speed. So name the moment. What you're going to do here is write about a recent moment that stirred something in you. Could be a conversation that lingered. It could be a reaction that surprised you. It could be a disagreement you're still replaying. A moment where you shut down or got defensive. And don't analyze or overanalyze it. Just describe what happened. And do it in a way that you're able to just describe what happened without any interpretation or without any judgment. And then once you've described it, you can go back and read it, and now you're going to name the feelings. Bring your attention to your body. Where did you feel this experience? Your chest, your stomach, your jaw, your shoulders, your hands. And what do you call that feeling? So this is a kind of a 2 prompt is what did you feel? So what was the emotional definition of your energy at that time? And then even as you write it, what emotion is present right now as you write it? So what was it in the moment? And what was it right now as you're writing? What is it right now as you're writing? And if multiple emotions show up, let them all be there. Just name them one at a time and answer that question. What did I feel in that moment? That's really important in terms of your journaling. So name the feeling. Next, you're going to name the story. This is where the blind spots live. Write the story that your mind told you about that moment. Not what was true, but what your mind decided. So what I want you to do is go into that story part of that interaction or that experience and write down the story that you told yourself up here about what happened or what your mind decided, not what's true, just what did your mind decided. And then the prompts are, what meaning did you make about this moment? What meaning did you make about yourself? What felt threatening to you? What meaning did you make about the other person? And remember, this page isn't for anybody but you. So it's important for your own learning to understand, what is the story I made up about this interaction, about the other person? What is the story I made up about myself? How did I feel threatened? It could be that you felt threatened just because you have a different perspective, or maybe because the other person didn't agree with your perspective, or they didn't want to own it. And as we go deeper into this process, you can deepen the level of your writing, because again, this page is only for you, not for anybody else. And then we're going to work on getting to the origination point. And this is the key place for healing and understanding, is the origination point, which, as I've shared with you, is typically between birth and high school, when all of these things, regardless of how old you are today, most of these blind spots were put into you between birth and high school. So here's the question to ask yourself. When have I felt this feeling before? What did I need to be safe back then when I first experienced it? And what did I learn about myself or others in that earlier moment? Now, if you were like me, who was an arrogant victim, I could answer this question where I felt it before, probably when I was 17 years old, interacting with somebody from my school. However, when I get to the other questions, what did I need to be safe back then? And the answer would be, I don't know. I have no idea what I would need to be safe. And then what did I learn about myself or others in that earlier moment could simply be my justification of the truth based on my experience. And so I have to move myself out of that. That's where curiosity is more powerful than certainty. So when have I felt this before? Well, if I'm curious about it, I'm going to put my pen down and sit in a reflective space and think about, when did I feel this before? And I want you to go back as far as you can. The origination point is also the root cause, and that's what we have to heal if we're going to impact our current interactions based on where we are today. So what did I need to stay safe back then? What did I learn about myself or others in that earlier moment? And it's important to know that you're not blaming the past, you're really working to understand it. So you're not blaming it, you're not justifying it, you're not defending it, you're just saying, how can I understand more about what actually happened when I had a similar experience back then that I'm having right now today? So that's the next step. The next step is offer yourself compassion. Put a hand over your heart if that feels supportive. Or right as you're speaking to a younger version of yourself who learned this pattern. And my hope would be that if you're writing to a younger version of yourself, because you're young, you're going to be more descriptive and you're going to be more inquisitive and you're going to put less judgment onto it because your younger self can do that. And as you're writing as if you're speaking to a younger version of yourself, you have to remember that you learned this pattern. You learn this blind spot that you want to disrupt. And so what did this part of me need back then? What did this part of me when I was a little boy or young girl, what did I need back then? And what do I want this part of me to know now? So again, for me, I would say that this part of me back then when I was in conflict with my dad, what I needed was somebody who had compassion or somebody who cared about me, because I created a blind spot of meanness from those interactions. What do I want that part of me to know now? And if I were to look at that question, I would have to say things like, well, that I'm sorry that I didn't realize how much blame and shame would impact our ability to grow or my ability to grow. And that's something I can journal about. So let kindness lead. Healing doesn't come from harshness. Healing comes from being soft and accepting and willing to go through the change. And then finally, awareness without action is a waste of awareness. So the first 5 steps create awareness. This last step is what creates action. So we don't change everything at once. So I want you to think about the most important behavior or language or characteristic that you surfaced and measure your desire to change it. If your desire is above an 8, then that's the perfect number for you to think about starting there. So we don't change everything at once. Growth happens through small conscious choices. So what's a gentle shift you can practice the next time this feeling shows up? Because if it's unhealed, it's going to continue to show up. Not a promise, not perfection, just awareness. And the beauty of journaling is you can journal almost anywhere. Just get yourself a small book that you can carry with you and take 5 minutes and write something down during the day, or just write what you're feeling in that particular moment. So when you get home that evening, you have something to connect to, and you can quickly go to that and go, gosh, I felt this at 2:00 today. What was I doing? What was my experience like? And you'll again learn things about yourself. So the final reflection I want to say about journaling is blind spots soften when we meet them with honesty and care. There's no rush. There's no shortcuts. Every time you choose to take progress towards awareness, it brings you closer to yourself and to others. And that's how healing begins. So return to this journaling process over and over again. Don't think about it as fixing yourself as much as it is creating awareness about what you went through. Because once you're aware of what you went through, you'll be able to take the steps and decide what it is that needs to happen next. And that ultimately this approach is really about not fixing you. It's about understanding you and recognizing that there's a reason for why you feel what you feel and what you experience today that's rooted in your past. That was a lot. Remember, if you have questions, go to our website, De La Cruz Leadership Solutions, and look for info at De La Cruz Leadership Solutions, and share your questions, share your thoughts. If there's another topic you want to talk about, share that as well. And I appreciate your time and your attention, and I would love also to hear, and you can find me on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, and share with me your experience with this journaling process, and let me know if it was helpful. And again, I appreciate your time and your willingness to listen, and remember to keep growing. Thanks, everybody. Have a blessed day.